Good afternoon, everyone. So good of you to join us today. My name is Tara Diaz, and I'm a service delivery manager here at AgileQuest. Joining me today is Vashonda Short, who will be assisting us in the webinar and will help gather questions from you. Also presenting with me today is Roz Hensler, our senior sales consultant. The purpose of today's webinar is to share different ideas on how you can use Forum to help get your workplace ready for your employees to safely return to the office. And we'll start off with Ross providing some information on Forum, especially for those of you who are somewhat new to AgileQuest. He will then demonstrate different ways physical distancing for reservations can work in Forum, basically what the end users will see. And then I will demonstrate the admin setup needed for some of those options. For questions during the webinar, please use the chat box and send in your questions that way, and we will do our best to cover them as much as we can before we end the call today. Otherwise, we will follow up with you. Also, this session will be recorded, so anyone in your team who couldn't join today will have an opportunity to watch this presentation again on their own time. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Ross?
Thank you, Tara, and thank you everyone for joining today. Before jumping into the platform, I first wanted to cover some key touch points to outline today's discussion surrounding our back to workplace approach and the why behind our solution. So the first is going to be employee trust. The AgileQuest Forum really helps reduce employee fears when re-entering the workplace by showing users that management has invested time and resources to take real visible steps to improve their safety. There's several different approaches and ways that we can do this. One is by leveraging no touch. This helps users avoid touchscreen panels on conference rooms and workspaces by leveraging QR codes. We can book and verify presence directly off of our own personal device. And I'll show you that once we get to the mobile device later on in the discussion. We can also partition and stagger our workforce or space, and we can stagger the re-entry into the workplace. This can also be easily managed by Forum. Next, we have a social and physical distancing. Forum can limit accessibility to workspaces based on a physical layout. Seating may be dynamically assigned, such as booking one seat and automatically removing adjacent seats from availability. Next, we have a work from home component. We've incorporated home-based telework, so it's just another place for users to then book space within your network of spaces. You can book and verify presence at home the same as you would in an office. Therefore, we can trace in case of a COVID-19 positive test. Everyone knows where teams and colleagues are always located. With Trace and Verify, we have information that's already available to us in the platform and gives us a valuable information on who is where and when, and who is using what assets. We also have measurement and presence and utilization. So we can start now by measuring the actual presence by employees and actual utilization of assets, so that when we roll out additional phases of re-entry, we can then manage that data as needed. And lastly, compliance and support. We want to use this platform to support you in compliance of OSHA regulations and CDC guidelines. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open up Forum so we can discuss the different approaches in Forum. So obviously when I get to the Forum home screen, there's a search bar where I can search for a specific location, I can search for a specific type of asset, and then the date in which I'm wanting to search for. Let's first start off by focusing on the floor plan. And we've broken this down into different types of floor plans to show you how versatile the platform can be. The first focus here is going to be physical distancing. So on this platform, we can very quickly see what's available to us and what's unavailable to us by green circles and red triangles. The gray triangles are going to indicate spaces that are no longer available for reservations. We've gone in ahead of time and deemed these unavailable. As you can see, when I hover over top, it displays that this asset cannot be reserved. Therefore, we're enforcing these physical distancing guidelines, and users are still able to make reservations in the system. The next approach that I want to focus on is breakdown times. And once again, with the breakdown times, we've gone in ahead of time and applied physical distancing to the assets. So we're still allowing the reservations to be made on these green circles. However, we've deemed assets in between unavailable. But just to focus in on this breakdown time, we've associated a 23-hour period on the asset so that when I make a reservation and that reservation ends, there's a 23-hour window where this asset cannot be reserved again. After the 23-hour period, it will then open up again. And to show you how that operates, I'm going to make a quick reservation. And as we can see, the red triangle pops up to show that I've reserved the space. Now, if I change the date and time to tomorrow, we will see that the triangle now appears gray, therefore notifying users that this space cannot be reserved. And then if we go to the following day, after the 23-hour period has ended, we will see that this space is once again available to be reserved. Next, we can discuss group availability. And within the platform, we can create user groups and asset groups. And within these groups, we can partition and stagger the floor plan. So when I come in, I may be a part of group 1. And within my group, I only have access to a certain portion of the floor. For this example, we can see that the top portion of the floor is available to me to reserve. There may be another group of individuals that come in to access the floor plan that have availability at the bottom of the screen, however, not at the top of the floor plan. To branch off of this a little bit further, I want to discuss dynamic spacing. And once again, we can see at the bottom of the screen, I may only have a certain portion of assets that are available to me. However, with dynamic spacing, I'm able to go in and reserve any space that I want as a user. Let's say that I select asset 412. I'm going to go ahead and make a quick reservation. And as we can see, it now shows that this space has been reserved and it's unavailable. However, the surrounding spaces have been tied to this asset and now show that they're unavailable as well. So once again, we're enforcing that physical distancing within the platform. The last approach that I want to focus on is alternate workdays. And as we can see right off the bat, we have a group of assets that are available. There's another group of assets on the outside that are not available to me. However, if I change the date and time, I'll go back one day. We can see that the options available to us flip. So therefore, it gives us time when these assets are not available that we can go in and we can clean these assets and disinfect the surrounding areas. And then the next subsiding day, we'll have another group of assets available to us. Next, I'd like to focus a little bit on the home office reservations. So within the system, we can apply home offices. And when I come to search by list, I can select a certain floor and search by home office. So we put generic home offices in here so that a user may come in and book a home office for the day, therefore notifying other users that they have made a reservation, but they're going to be working from home. This really helps with collaboration. If I'm wanting to work with maybe a team member or another member of the department, I can see very quickly where they're working from for the day. And Tara is going to expand a little bit further on our status bar that's recently been implemented, that you can use that to also notify other users where you are on a given day. With that, we're now going to switch over to analytics. And the first portion of analytics is going to be the dashboard. And these dashboards can be created by an admin user. You can select from a plethora of widgets that are available that can display different types of information. So as we can see, there's several different types of widgets here that have information on the popular days in a location, popular times in a location. But when we think about expanding and opening to more users into the platform, once we expand our reentry, we might want to use a report such as the daily asset utilization, which will show us our capacity levels to show us an overall capacity limit. And then we can also see how many assets are being reserved on a daily basis versus how many of those assets are actually being utilized. So reports like these can be extremely beneficial when thinking of ways to re-enter the workplace. Next, we also have reports that are available to us. And the report that I want to zone in on the most is going to be the individual asset use and presence report. It's a new report of ours, but it's extremely beneficial. And I'll use myself as an example here. But if on May 7th, I came into work and I wasn't feeling well, I end up leaving early even, and I get tested for COVID and I test positive. We might want to run a report such as this to understand what space I had used during the day and maybe who I had come in contact with, and potentially what door I had entered the building with. But we can see right away that I had used office space 2, I'd reserved it, and I had checked in because it's green. I can also see that Abby and Jack had both used the space either the same day or within 5 previous days. If I scroll down further, I can see that I had also used the seating area. And we can see that Jack and Jay had also used it the same day or within the 5 days previous. And we can also see that Jay is expected to use it within the next 5 days. So we may want to notify Jay that I've tested positive for COVID and let him know that we're going to be closing this asset down for the time being and may need to move his reservation. If I need to run the same report for another individual that I might have come in contact with, I can simply just hit this blue circle and run the same report for another user. Scrolling down, we can also see a few other assets that I had reserved. However, it looks like office space 28 I had reserved, but I had never checked into the asset as it's orange. And then lastly, we have badge swipe. So if we've integrated with the badging system, I can see the location that I swiped into, the door that I had used, and the time that I had entered that door. So we can trace even further. And then also a simple report at the bottom to see other people that I may have come in close contact with or maybe have been included on a meeting with. So I can notify them directly from this list of contact information, either a phone number or an email. So with that, I'm going to switch over now to our mobile device so we can discuss the no-touch reservations. So this is the home screen of our mobile device. And as you can see right away, there's 6 different ways of interacting with this device. We can make a reservation, we can manage reservations, we can check into any current reservations, we can even access floor plans. Once again, these are the same floor plans that we saw on the web application. Very interactive, so I can always zoom in to see availability. The scan the QR code is our no touch reservation option. So if I'm walking around and maybe there's a conference room that I want to reserve for the day, I can simply hit scan QR code and scan the QR code that's available outside of the room. And I can very easily access a calendar view to see when this asset is going to be in use. I can see from this space, it's not going to be in use for the rest of the day, so I can make a reservation. I can also access a floor plan to see exactly where this asset is located on a floor plan. And lastly, I can access the asset detail page where I can see vital information regarding this asset, like hours of operation, the policies surrounding the space, how far in advance can I make a reservation, will I be bumped if I don't check in? And I can also see amenities and attributes. If everything looks the way I want it to, I can just simply hit make a reservation, submit. I'm going to go ahead and check in now, and the reservation has been completed, and it'll now show in my active reservations. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Tara to discuss back to the workplace even further.
Thanks so much, Ross. So now that we've seen what users can experience in Forum, let's go through some of the admin setups so you can also do this in your Forum. I'm going to cover the setups for physical distancing, how you can utilize breakdown times to ensure that there's enough time between reservations for desks to be cleaned, how you can set up assets to make them available in alternating days, and then lastly, I'll show a new functionality that was just released 2 weeks ago with regards to your status. First things first, just like with anything in life, you need to make a plan. So one of the first things to do is to figure out how to allow for physical distancing. That means actually looking at your floor plan first and planning how you can work physical distancing or staggering before you can make any updates to Forum. It just makes it easier that way. Let's start with the idea of physical distancing. Like you saw in Ross's demo, in this case, I have my floor plan and I've planned out which spaces will be active and which ones should be inactivated. In other words, which spaces will not be available for booking. Basically, we want to put enough distance between where employees sit, ideally at least a 6 feet distance, And by looking at the entire floor plan, you can either work from it from your monitor or you can print it out if that's easier for you. I can clearly map out which spaces I need to inactivate. Now, depending on how many assets are impacted, you can make this change to the status of active or inactive via the web user interface and forum. However, if you do have a lot of assets to change or update, maybe several floors or several locations, what you can do is use the data management utility or the DMU to make those updates. For now, let's take a look at the web UI and then I'll switch over to the DMU so you guys can see what that looks like. So here we are in the web UI, and you do have to be an admin to make these changes. So what you'll do is you would go to the settings tab in your forum, click on assets, and then you'll want to search for the location that you're making this change in. So in this case, I'm going to the Boston office, and I've already added some floors here and renamed and actually named them according to what we're trying to demo today. So I'm going to go to my physical distancing floor first. And just a quick tip, if whenever you're making these types of changes and you want to be able to quickly check what it looks like for the user, it's always good to actually have two browsers open, two different browsers. So in my case, I have two sessions of Forum open. I have one here in Chrome, and then I also have another one in Firefox, so that I can quickly kind of just go back and forth between the two. If I want to look at the floor plan, just to make sure that the changes are getting applied correctly, I can quickly go to the other browser and check that without having to log out or log back in. And that's also true if you're trying to change a business rule and you want to see what it looks like for your registered user, because obviously for your registered user, they should see a different behavior depending on what that business rule is, as you would as an admin. So now that we've got our asset list, and I'm just going to bring up my map again, because if we look at my map, I have a general idea on which spaces to inactivate. In this case, I basically want only every other space to be bookable to create the 6 feet safe distance between employees. So 4039, which is up here on the top left, is open, which means that what I want to do is inactivate the one right below it, and that I happen to know that that's 4040. Then we want to leave 4041 open, the one below that, and then we just need to inactivate the then on the next row we want to inactivate 4042 and so on. So to do that in the UI, basically what you would do is just go to the asset that you want to inactivate. In this case, I want to go to 4040. And in the details page, if you scroll down, you'll see the status field for active. You just want to change this to inactive and then save it. And you're basically done. So you would now go back to the rest of your spaces. So you can just go down the list. Again, you can even hover right on the asset itself, click on details, change it to inactive, and then save it. So that is manageable if you're only having to do that with less than 20 assets, unless you're sharing that responsibility with other teammates, and you can go through that pretty quickly. But if you were making a change for maybe 20 or more assets, I should say, then you could do this change also using the data management utility. So just like with Forum, to make this change on the UI, you also do need to be an admin to use the DMU. And if you already have this installed, all you would need to do is open your data management utility, which I have here. And then you would need to log in using your credentials. So let me go ahead and do that. And then what we want to do is go to the assets management in Forum. So click on the assets tab. and then modify existing assets, because obviously these are already assets that exist in your forum. You just want to change the status. Now, the first thing you need to do is download your asset data, and that is best practice because you always want to work with the most current data in the system. So for today, I've actually already downloaded my data, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So once I've downloaded my data, what I can do, and this is what it would look like, you basically have different column headers, and you basically will just want to modify um, your any changes that you want to make. So in this case, what we want to do is we want to inactivate some of these spaces, right? So we want to inactivate 40, 42. We want to inactivate 40, 11, basically every other space. So as you can see, it's quite easy to make these updates from a spreadsheet. And once you've made those changes, you would basically just save and close that. And then what you do next is you upload that asset data. So I'm clicking the upload asset data button, and then I'm just going to select the file that I just modified, which is my physical distancing file. And then down here on your DMU, you'll actually see kind of like a timeline of the processing that's happening. Now, depending on how many assets you actually have in your forum, this could take a few minutes. Sometimes it could take a few seconds. Now, once that's complete, as you can see, it's kind of going now. Now it's telling me that it's now 100% complete. So at this point, you can actually just go into your forum and check to make sure that those changes did apply. But one of the things that we actually recommend is in your um, File Explorer, wherever you loaded your DMU, you will see a folder for AgileQuest. And in there is a folder for data management utility. And then you'll have different reports depending on the different things that you've already done in the DMU. So here, I'm just going to click on the Modify Assets report because I want to see what actually occurred, right? And if I'm lucky, these will all be successful. So I've opened that report. It shows me the modify process that I just ran. And then each asset that I modified, where I made them inactive, or maybe I changed something else in that record, it will show that it was a success. That's what we want. So if there's anything there, maybe you misspelled inactive, and the DMU doesn't recognize what that word is. If there's anything that failed, it will also show that here in this screen or in this report. So that's kind of how you would show, or that's how you can change the status for your assets, either using the UI or using the DMU. So now let's talk about the breakdown time. So breakdown time, as you know, is, or maybe you don't, but we can talk about it today. So breakdown time is basically the time that a space is unavailable after the end of a reservation. In the case of COVID-19, where you want to leave enough time between bookings, maybe enough time for cleaning of each space, then you can use the breakdown time to prevent back-to-back reservations. So again, I'm going to show this to you from the UI first, and then we'll kind of walk through the DMU process, but it's basically pretty similar. So I'm just going to go back to my assets here, but instead of physical distancing, I'm going to move on to my floor, if I can spell Boston correctly, for breakdown times. Just going to click search, and I'm going to open this first asset, which is 2001. Under the policies, you will see an option for breakdown time. So currently this is set to 0. In Ross's demo, it was set to 23 hours. Now you could set it to however much time you need for the breakdown time. In this case, I'm going to use 12 hours or 720 minutes. The thought is typically we have our cleaning crew come late in the evening. And so what would happen is if I have a reservation on a space that ends at 5 p.m., then the earliest reservation that could be made would be the next day at after 5 a.m. So similar to making spaces inactive, you can definitely make this change from the UI. But again, if you have a lot of spaces to change, then it's also best to do that from the DMU. Now, just like before, I've already pre-downloaded the modify asset data from the DMU earlier, so you didn't just have to watch me wait for that to happen. And I'm just gonna click and open this breakdown time asset data. Now, if we go over to the right, you'll basically see, sorry for all the scrolling, you'll basically see a column which is in column BE for 720 minutes. So I've started this already. And you would just go down and you can just copy and paste it. So instead of having to open each record and saving it from the UI, if you have a lot of changes to make, the DMU is really the way to go. Because again, you can just copy that and then, save it however many spaces you need to go. Then what you would do is you would just save that. And again, you'll want to close it because the DMU will not allow you to upload it if it wasn't closed. Now, in this case, just like a cooking show, I went ahead and already ran this report earlier today. So I can just kind of show you what this looks like. So breakdown time. Again, it will give you basically a log that shows all the assets have been updated. And now when we go to the actual asset in Forum, you'll see that those changes have been applied, right? So 720 minutes. So that's really a quick way for you to modify your assets is through the DMU. Now, in this case, what will happen again is the space will be automatically become unavailable for booking until after the 12 hours have passed since the last reservation. So again, gives you time to do your deep clean, or if you're doing that every day, or if you're just cleaning the space and making sure nobody actually sits there until that's done. So the next option that we're going to talk about is alternating days. And Ross also showed this on his demo, but I'll show you a quick way to make this change. So going back to Boston, I already have a floor set up for this. And with alternating days, again, you would basically open your asset and then you would go to hours of operation. Now, you'll notice that you have 3 columns here. The first column is your open check flag, and this is what you would actually modify. So say, for example, you want this space to be opened just Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then you're doing a deep clean Saturday and Sunday. So you really want to close this off on Tuesdays and Thursdays and on the weekends. So it's a very quick change. You just have to uncheck Tuesday, Thursday, and then Saturday and Sunday. Click Save. And this is just a reminder to you about any reservations that might have been placed on those days for this space. So just click OK if you're good with that. And now what will happen is this space will not be available at all on Tuesdays, on Thursdays, and on the weekends. Now again, with a DMU, just like before, I've already prepped the data for this. And what I did was, on the spaces that I do want to modify, there's a column here for your Monday open, and then Monday open time, and then Monday close time. On the columns that say open for Monday, Tuesday, and so on, that's basically where you're going to want to modify that value. So instead of true, you would just set that to false. Right? So I've gone ahead and set that to false for Tuesday, Thursday, and then Saturday and Sunday. And then again, you'll want to save it and close it, upload it to the DMU. And just like before, you'll basically go in, check your report to make sure that that was successful in changing, and then you can go into the web UI, look at the actual asset itself, and then see that those updates have been made. So I ran that earlier today. If I go to hours of operation, for example, on the other assets, then I see that those spaces have been closed on the days that I don't want those spaces to be available. The other way to look at this, if you wanted to, is on the when a user is making a reservation. If I go into the calendar view, for example, for Thursday, go to the actual floor. So today's Wednesday. If I move this to Thursday, then what you'll see is that those spaces are no longer available. So you still see the gray that came up, but if I go to Friday, then those spaces are now available. So this is also a quick way to check to make sure that your changes were made successfully. Now, the last thing that I'd like to show you is the status feature that was added in the last release of Forum, which was the R10 release at the end of June. So the new feature basically allows each user, I'm just going to go to the main page, each user to enter a status that is attached to their profile. Now, the way that you would do this, quick, very easy, is you would go to your profile, just click on the caret, and then you'll see an option for My Status. So this would be a free text. You can basically put in whatever you want to display on your profile. So in this case, I'm displaying that I'm working from home all this week. Most of us are anyway, probably for the next month, just to let my coworkers know where I might be in case they were looking for me. Now, where does this show up? Basically from the home page, if I scroll down at the bottom of my screen in the My Team area, so in this case, I've added Vashanda as part of my team, and I can see very quickly where she's reserved for the day. But now I can also see what status she's put in place in her profile. So I can see that Vashanda is working from home this week, and she's also on PTO next week. Good to know, especially if I'm trying to collaborate with somebody post-COVID, of course. The other way to look at that is if you're in the search bar, you can also search for somebody here. In this case, I'm just going to search for Daryl. And then for Daryl, he's actually working from the beach cabana today, which also shows up on the My Teams area down here, which is a really nice space to book, by the way. So that's also another way that you can communicate to your teams, especially if you are working remotely. So those are the different ways that you can set up your forum to meet some of the physical distancing protocols that we've demoed today. If you have any questions about these or wish to do a deeper dive, please feel free to reach out to our team. That would be your project manager if you're currently on an active implementation project with AgileQuest, or our support team, and I'll share their contact information here shortly. Before we go through some of the questions that came in, I should mention that a recording again of this session will be posted to our customer success portal, which is success.agilequest.com. And that's a really good resource for you all to have at your fingertips. Just make sure you actually do sign in when you come to our success portal, because that will give you access to all of our articles and videos, basically our entire knowledge base, versus just some of the public articles that you would see if you were not signed in. So you'll also find training videos there, recordings, like I mentioned, guides, especially for those of you that are just starting out. Those are all available on the site. And again, just make sure that you sign in at the top right of the page so you can see all of them. If you do have any trouble accessing or need an account please email support@agilequest.com. Or if you're currently on an active implementation, talk to your project manager. That could be me if I'm working with you. That way we can help you with your access. Fashanda, do we have any questions in chat today?
Hi, we have just a few. The first question is, what if my organization does not use check-in? Can I still use the utilization report as presented?
That is a really good question. So the not doing the check-in does limit you on what reports are going to be available to you. For one, your utilization will basically just show 100%, because when you make a reservation and not require check-in, you basically just have that space. So there's no presence information for us to capture that says you've actually used it. It's just assigned to you, so it's assumed that you've used it. So in order for, especially the report that Ross showed, in order for that to be accurate so that you can really know who used the space, you'll need to enable, it's good, I should say, to enable check-in. Thanks for that.
Thank you. The next question is are you seeing your clients use several other approaches as they begin to transition to the workplace, or is there one popular over the other?
I can take that first, and then Ross, if you have anything also to add, feel free.
Okay.
So right now, I think a lot of the clients that I'm working with are still kind of trying to figure things out. Um, a lot of them are choosing not to open their locations yet, and which is kind of a good way for them to really think about how they're going to allow their employees back in. Several of them are doing the physical distancing, kind of what we showed you today, where they're inactivating some spaces. Some of them are just inactivating some of the other floors too, if they have multiple floors in the building, just to allow for that, to make sure that spaces are, there's a schedule for it to get cleaned, and just ensuring that there's enough distance between where people actually sit.
Yeah, and the only thing that I would add to that, obviously there's a lot of different variables involved, but it's not one size fits all. It just depends on how your organization is set up, what the floor plan is like, and then going from there. I've seen a lot of people that are just making certain assets unavailable for the time being, and then as they roll out more additional phases, they'll then make those active again.
Thank you. That was the last question we received, so I'll turn it back over to Tara and Ross to close us out.
Thanks, Vashanda. So I just want to take a minute to thank you all again for joining us today to learn about the different ways you can leverage functionalities within Forum as you plan for your employees to return safely back to your workplace. We hope that you found the information in this webinar helpful. Please be sure to contact us here at AgileQuest should you have any questions or ideas. We'd love to hear from you. We also hope to see you at other training webinars in the future. Many of you know about the weekly admin trainings that we offer. In fact, I think we'll have one tomorrow. But this quarter, we've also added 2 additional trainings. One will be a demo on the data management utility, and that would be an advanced training. And then the second is a demo on how to set up the lobby kiosk and room kiosk also for Forum. Both of those are 30-minute trainings at no additional cost to our AgileQuest customers. So to register for any of these webinars, just go to our success portal where you will find plenty of resources forum related. Thanks everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye now.